Hello and welcome to the Mr. Strategy and Mrs. Wellbeing show. Sharing other, not what you might usually expect, examples from the not-profit sector.
Hello awesome humans, welcome to the first episode of Mr. Strategy and Mrs. Wellbeing. This is a podcast that myself and Claire have put together. We're going to talk a bit about it in a moment, but before we actually get into the podcast, which is going to happen in the next couple of weeks, we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of introduce ourselves. And even though we're really good mates, we've never actually met each other, so a really good opportunity to throw a few questions at each other so that you guys get a sort of good understanding for what we're trying to achieve and the sort of level of humour that we both have. So I suppose, Claire, it's probably best for you to have a bit of a chat about why does the sector need another podcast?
Okay, the reason we believe the sector needs another podcast, Wayne and I, whilst doing completely different jobs, do our totally different jobs from a very similar viewpoint, which is people come first and people always should come first, and that people are at the heart of everything. So whilst Wayne works on strategy and I work on management and well-being, our approach is probably not what you would usually expect from the title. So when I think about strategy, I think about men in grey suits and very little humour and very little anything of any interest and a big shiny bound up document that then never gets used. When people think about well-being, they think about quinoa and hummus and the lotus position. That's not what I mean when I talk about well-being. And the grey suit, shiny thing, shiny polished, isn't what Wayne means when he talks about strategy. And so what we wanted to do was to be able to talk about all of these things that affect all of us in this awesome charity sector on a daily basis, but from a totally different viewpoint. So I guess our strapline is not what you would usually expect from, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure there was a focus that put people at the heart of everything, and not just people, but the awesome people who work in the charity sector. So that was where we were coming from.
Brilliant stuff. And yeah, couldn't disagree with any of that. And I put my grey suit away, so no worries there. And I suppose what we also did is we put our heads together just to come up with a kind of manifesto, just to sort of crystallise what it is that we're thinking. And we're gonna release this, so it'll be available for you all to have a look at. But I thought I just might sort of take you through it. Really, there's only 10 points to it, but it's all bound up with this idea that really, you know, people are inherently good and people want to work in the charity sector, but you know, things like hierarchy and structure and workload and leadership can have a really sort of positive or negative effect on kind of how we all feel and our mental and physical health. And I think from Claire and I's perspective, we just don't really think that individual and collective well-being is being focused on in a strategic way. It's kind of a bolt on. It's generally not in our organizational DNA, it's not in our vision, it's not in our objectives. And some charities are doing really well at focusing on this and addressing it, but others are seeing it as a bit of a bolt on or a nice to have. And we sort of feel that addressing this properly could really transform the sector for everyone. And I think that's the really critical thing. So in terms of our sort of manifesto and what we believe, I think fundamentally, number one, we believe that humans are amazing, you know, and we're all capable of incredible things. And we also believe that our individual and our sort of collective humanity is a really powerful tool for change. And leading on from that, it means that fundamentally we believe that people and culture are the most important assets that our sector has, which sort of makes us sort of think that well-being should be at the heart of any organizational strategy that we put together. And leading on from that, sort of any sort of strategy that's without humanity is not only sort of redundant in these current times, but can also be really damaging. And a big one for us is that we believe in the power of humans, not hierarchy. Always good to get that one in there. So with this podcast, what we believe is that if we give a platform and a voice, and in particular give some agency to people to share their experiences, then things can change. We believe that if we support and if we amplify and give a leg up to people, the quicker we're all going to evolve. So sort of together, we believe that collectively we can positively and radically transform the sector. And I think that point number 10, which is one that we've been really grappling with a lot, is that we sort of feel that well-being and strategy are really inadequate terms for what we're both doing, but it's going to have to kind of do for now. So that's kind of what we stand for. Hope you agree with some or all of that. So in terms of what to expect from this podcast going forward, it's going to be about people. It's going to be about humanity. Hopefully, it's going to have some humour in there. But it's going to be about people who are looking at people and culture or well-being and strategy from different angles, whether that be sort of massive organisational transformational changes, or whether it be small incremental day-to-day changes that people are making, because they all really add up. And getting back to one of the points in the manifesto, the more we amplify that sort of stuff, the quicker we're going to evolve. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. And I think it'd be a good idea now to get to know Claire Warner a bit better than we do. So I'm going to ask you some questions now, Claire. I hope you're ready.
I'm ready.
So yeah, tell us a bit about. Let's do the LinkedIn thing first. Tell us a bit about your work history.
Okay. So I have been a fundraiser since straight out of university in 1997. For those of you that don't want to do the maths, that means I'm 45. We're both 45. We're both knackered and old. I fell into fundraising like I think lots of people did. I had my first job was with the Halle Orchestra in Manchester. I had been to music school previously, so it was originally my intention to have a career as an orchestral musician, but at music school I totally changed my mind, went and did a business and management degree, came out, saw this amazing job with my home city world-class orchestra, and thought I can do a sponsorship manager job straight out of university with no skills, no experience, not even knowing what a sponsorship manager job is. So I applied for it, and unsurprisingly I didn't get it. But my boss at the time, Kath, saw, as many people I have done since, saw something in me that said there's something about this person who would actually make a really awesome fundraiser, and so they created a trainee job for me, and I literally haven't looked back since then. I was really, really lucky that my first 3 employers, in fact my only 3 full-time in-house employers, paid and really, really invested in training and developing me to make me as great as I could be. So I went on the phenomenal National Arts Fundraising School within 6 months of joining the Halle. I then moved a couple of years later from the Halle. I went to Opera North in Leeds, where they invested in a really, really brilliant corporate sponsorship course for me. It was 5 days of full-on corporate sponsorship. And I stayed there for a few years, and then I was approached to run the final phase of the capital appeal for the Imperial War Museum in Manchester. And at the Imperial War Museum, they hugely invested in our training and our abilities as managers and our responsibilities as managers and as leaders. So I was lucky enough to be given 2 full Roffey Park Institute management and leadership training courses, which was just amazing. And I didn't know that wasn't what happened to everybody. I didn't know that the first 3 jobs, you didn't get not just some training, but literally the best training there was for that particular role. That was my experience of working in the sector, and that's what I thought happened. And I soon realised that isn't what happened. So in 2003, I went freelance, and I started working on smaller projects, smaller appeals, smaller individual things, mainly around the Northwest. And so worked on big and small projects and did capital appeals for a number of hospices. I worked for some sporting organisations. I worked for Lancashire County Cricket Club. I went to the Philharmonic in Liverpool on a 6-month contract and stayed there for 6 years. So I've done a whole host of very big and very small assignments. And then in 2016, totally out of the blue, first person in my family, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to take a year off work to receive successful but very, very harrowing, very, very aggressive treatment for breast cancer, which worked. But the Claire that came back into the workplace in 2017 wasn't the same Claire who had worked for breakfast, lunch and tea when she finished in 2016. So since then, I have tried to focus on well-being, on the well-being of fundraisers. And if I don't feel or don't want to be able currently to go and lead fundraising teams like I used to, I'd like to really help make a difference to those people who still are doing, and try and, like you say, amplify the challenges that face those people, the challenges that face those teams, and my deep rooted belief that fundraisers don't become fundraisers because they want an easy life, and fundraisers don't become fundraisers because they just want to slack off and do nothing, and that they're not passionate and they're not committed. It's just a lot of the stuff that you hear outside of the sector about fundraisers is what the people on the street who fundraisers interact with, that's the opinion and that's the impression they get. That's what I want to do, is change that opinion, change that impression, and make sure that in our organisations where we put our beneficiaries first and we put our donors second, that our staff, our paid staff and our fundraisers and our everybody who has anything to do with ensuring that that bridge happens between the donor and the beneficiary, that they are just seen as and invested in as just as important part of that mix, rather than just the expensive bit on the side that really should be minimised. We should be maximised, and we should be invested in, and we should be given as every opportunity to be as awesome and as successful as possible. And so that's kind of where I'm coming at work from now.
Bloody hell, mate. I wish I'd gone first with the questions. You put the fear of God into me now. How am I going to top that? Cool. Okay, so outside of the LinkedIn profile then, tell us a bit about outside work. What do you get up to?
Outside work. So when I got well, my family and I took the decision to move to the middle of nowhere. So I live on the top of a hill in Lancashire. Today it's sunny. Tomorrow I might not be able to see because the cloud will be here. We took a deliberate decision to move to the middle of nowhere and to choose to join the human race if we wanted to, which I guess has just meant we've lived in lockdown by choice since 2017. I have a husband and 2 children, 2 daughters, and walking and being outside is a big part of what we do. We have a dog. We now have a horse. The real Claire is mostly winging it a lot of the time. There's a lot of theory behind. I kind of get by on, well, I think I know it, and I do know a lot of it, but I will wing it regularly, and quite successfully most of the time. I have an amazing bunch of friends and acquaintances, both inside and outside of the fundraising world. I love eating, as you can probably tell. I used to love drinking. I'm not allowed to drink anymore because I have a heart condition from my chemo. However, I just have this totally different outlook on life, which is welcome to another day on planet Earth. I will never complain about another birthday. I will never complain. Oh, I might complain about it. I might complain about going grey. It's great to have hair to go grey. I just have a very different outlook on life. And I'm trying to make the most of it and trying to enjoy myself and trying to look after myself in the process. Fantastic.
Cool. So what are you working on at the moment?
At the moment, I am. So last year I ran a big piece of research into well-being of fundraisers and other people in the charity sector. But the big online survey I ran, we got the views of more than 700 fundraisers. And so that gave a really, really great insight into not just what were the challenges that face fundraisers, but what are the things we need to change that could make it so much better. And so kind of interrogating that, disseminating that, and creating courses and creating products and services that help bridge the gap between the two. I'm working on. So I have there's 3 areas of work at the moment. Wellbeing just generally is a big thing. So I created a free 5-day wellbeing challenge called Shine, and we ran that for the first time in May. Got over 150 people took part in that, and then there's a 12-week follow-on from that. So getting people to start valuing their own well-being and making space for it in their lives and committing to one change, but forming that habit and keeping that habit in place until that habit becomes part of your life. So I'm running a program around that. I'm doing a lot of mentoring and coaching, mainly of managers and leaders. So people who either line manage staff or who lead a whole team within a charitable organisation. Originally it was mainly fundraisers, but now there's a split of fundraisers, comms, service delivery, policy, all kinds of things. But helping those people face the current challenges basically, and have somebody that it's okay to go out and go, do you know what, I haven't got a clue. And we just talk through things and basically supporting those kind of people. And then thirdly, I'm working on some consultancy projects with charities who want to either change, shift, or make wholesale sweeping changes to their organisational culture. I'm doing a lot of work around the one team concept at the moment, that in an organisation, it doesn't matter which chair you sit in or which team you sit in, you all are there for a common goal. And so to try and bring all of that in, because obviously the left hand can't work without the right hand, so you can't do the work without the funds, and you can't get the funds without the work, and just trying to embed that more as a more culture related thing, and getting organisations to embed a wellbeing policy within their culture. So what is their commitment to their staff wellbeing? So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Blimey, awesome. So what's the sort of one change that you want to see in the sector going forward then?
It's a big change. I would like to see the people within our third sector and for good organisations who historically the great British press would tell you are unnecessary overheads, or are the people who are taking money away from the beneficiaries. I would like to see those people valued, invested in, appreciated, even feeling it for themselves, getting their organisations to feel it, and making them feel like they are a totally integral part of that organisation, a necessary part of that organisation, and equally as valued, important and invested in as any other part of that organisation.
Nice.
So just
I am not an overhead. Good stuff. Tell me something really unexpected about you.
Unexpected about me. See, unexpected about me is really difficult because I'm quite an open book. I tell most people most things. So unexpected. My dad's a vicar.
No way. I didn't know that.
Not anymore. My dad was a vicar when I was born. My dad was our local church vicar.
C of E.
Possibly explains a lot, but yeah.
Wow, you're the son. It's like son of a preacher man.
Yeah, apart from not a son, but yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Blimey, that's a good one. All right, what's your biggest pet peeve, Claire?
Disingenuous people. I don't like hidden agendas. I don't like that feeling that the person that you are, that another person isn't their whole self, I just don't like, I think, well, obviously it comes from, like I say, my unusual, what's my thing you don't know about me? Well, everybody knows everything. Literally what you see is what you get. This is me. I'm horrible in the morning and I'm great in the middle of the day and I'm soon horrible again but I am a totally open book. And I understand that some people are more reserved than me and some people are shy, and that's not what I mean. It's where I think there's something sly or underhand or not. Integrity is really important, and genuine, what's the word? Genuineness? Genuineness. That word.
That one, yeah.
being genuine, integrity and being genuine. So anybody who isn't, anybody who I just think is in it for the wrong reasons, or it's just a bit that's my biggest pet peeve. I just don't like it at all.
Good on you. I'm with you there. What's your most annoying habit?
Just one.
We'll start with one.
Excessive swearing.
Now wrong with that, mate.
Well, there is when your 6-year-old copies you. I'm really horrible when I'm tired. I don't practice what I preach.
Mm-hmm.
So Mrs. Wellbeing was still at working at 3 o'clock this morning. It's not great.
Come on.
Yeah, probably one of those, or all of those.
Fair enough. Okay, so who is your inspiration? Children and partner not allowed.
No. I have a couple. So I've already told you that my dad was a vicar. My dad then decided that my dad's basically just a Dillis do-good is what I call him. And when being a vicar, being our local vicar wasn't the Dillis do-good thing that he thought it was going to be, he went and started working in the charity sector. So when I was 3 and 4, my dad worked for Oxfam and he worked on the Wells for Africa appeal. And he is totally fair to, he's the fairest person there is. Later in life, he left the charity sector. He went and did a management buyout of a business that he and some colleagues worked for. And my sister and I would go and work for him in our school holidays. And we always had to earn half of what the lowest paid member of staff earned.
Wow.
So that nobody could ever say that his children got bloody blah. So we would cover all their holidays and we earned half of whatever. And I always remember people saying that, you know, it doesn't matter whether I agree with your dad's opinion. I always know it's come from the right place. He's really fair. And I think that sense of fairness and justice and equality has definitely stuck with me. And it's possibly why I am so soapboxy. It would be really easy for you and I to turn this podcast into a total rant fest about everything that's wrong.
We do that offline.
Really important. It was really important to both of us that, well, we'll do that privately and we'll do the public facing bit. Will be, but what can we do about it? And how can we share what we know and what other people know to make it better? And so my dad has definitely ingrained that in me. And then the other person really quickly is Kath, that my first boss. So Kath just, if she hadn't have seen me at that interview and gone, what on earth is this idiot doing? If she hadn't have seen something, I've no idea where I would have ended up. Because fundraising I didn't even know it was a career. I didn't know anything about it. So she still is there. She still's doing that. It's really lovely when I see her. But that inspiration of seeing something in somebody that you think, do you know what, there really might be something there, and actually what's the worst that can happen? Let's take a punt, because let's actually look at what the best that could happen is. And that's also something that I've really tried to carry with me through my career, is who else can we help up along the way, not who else can we squash down along the way. And that was a really great first working environment, career, fundraising, charity sector, everything. That was such an amazing start to have.
Oh, mate. And that's why you're my mate. Brilliant answer. Okay, big one to finish with. Crumpets or muffins, and why?
Every time. Crumpets, just because. Just because. What is there better in life than a crumpet oozing with butter with a little bit of peanut butter on the top? There's nothing better.
What? Hang on. Peanut butter on a crumpet? Podcast is off, mate. Not having that. Ladies and gentlemen, the humanity of Claire Warner. There we are.
Okay, so Mr. Strategy Wayne Murray, your turn.
Okay.
Tell us about your work history.
Blimey. Bit similar to yours, really. You know, same age and whatever. I suppose the weird thing about me is that, and I'm thinking about this a lot because it's GCSE day today, is that I didn't do A-levels. I had a very domineering dad who made me a real high performer at GCSE level. So I did really well for my GCSEs, and then told him to shove it and said that I was going to art school. So I went to art school for for 4 years, and then went to university to do fine art for another 4 years. So 8 years of full-time fine art education. Got kicked out when I was 16, so I was living in bedsits throughout all that time, sort of the poorest person I knew during that phase. And then I came out of university, stumbled blindly out of university, having never used a computer, having absolutely no idea what I was going to do for a living, and had a real wake-up call at the first recruitment agency that I went to when I realised I couldn't type and I didn't know how to turn on a PC. So a lot of warehouse jobs and bar work followed. I worked in a shoe shop for a while. I was a picture framer for a while. This is just, back to back within a year of graduating with my MA. And then, like all good fundraisers, I stumbled into fundraising and started my career as a face-to-face and telephone fundraiser. And I was on the first team of face-to-face fundraisers when Greenpeace first brought face-to-face over from the Netherlands. And it was crazy. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. There were, stilt walkers, fire eaters, queues of people, 17 deep, all with their debit cards in their hand, all that sort of stuff. But I got the bug, and I always say that face-to-face is like magic. 1 minute you're hurtling down the high street trying to get the meal deal at the co-op, and then someone stops you, and all of a sudden you've signed up to be a human rights defender for Amnesty International. So that got me. So my career sort of went up and up within direct dialogue, agency side, and then I sort of wanted to work charity side. So I took the leap from agency and went to work for a disability charity, which was called John Grimm's at the time. That was my first sort of head of IG role, where I got to understand all the different aspects of individual giving. Then I wanted to understand how fundraising worked as a whole. So I took up the role as Director of Fundraising Comms at Prisons Abroad, which is sort of universally regarded as one of the toughest charities in the UK to raise money for. That was brilliant. And then after that, I sort of went back agency side for a while. It's been a sort of signature mark of my career. But then sort of the biggest charity side roles that I had, I was head of individual giving for Amnesty International, turned around an IG program that had been in decline for about 7 or 8 years. Then I took on the role as head of fundraising and brand at Refugee Action. That was just at the tipping point of the refugee crisis, just as the tragic picture of the drowned child, Aylan Kurdi, was published, and public perception started to kick back against that fucking evil Daily Mail rhetoric about swarms of people and, all of that sort of stuff. That was really interesting. And then went agency side again after that. So for the last 3 years, I've been at Audience as strategy director, sort of heading up on, started off as sort of fundraising strategy, but sort of bled out more into organizational strategy, service design, why are we here, all that sort of stuff, what is our relevance. And the pandemic's really kind of brought that into sharp relief. I'm just finishing my tenure at Audience now and just looking as to what the future holds for me, but it's definitely going to be within transformational change going forward. So that's me.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So the Wayne outside of work, is there a Wayne outside of work?
Yeah, he's knackered. Yeah, well, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. That takes up to 75% of my bandwidth, I'd say. I'm a dreadful artist. I'm an awful poet. I'm a failed musician. All this sort of stuff. So I tinker around in a lot of the arts, but I'm not particularly good at any of them. We adopted, so we've got an adopted son. That's been the sort of massive change in our life. He's been with us 5 years. He's 9 now, going on 15. And yeah, that's pretty much my life outside of work and sleep. And wine. Unlike you, I feel dreadful, but yes.
So you say you're coming to the end of your tenure at Audience. So what are you working on at the moment? What do you think the future is going to hold for Wayne and Marie Enterprises? Or yeah,
I like the sound of that. That's got a ring to it. Yeah, well, I don't know. Like the last 2 or 3 years, I've really been focusing on how the sector has to change and how transformational change is needed, and about humans, not hierarchy, and people and culture, the most important things we have, and how we need to do things differently and stop looking back and start looking forward. And there was a lot of incrementalism in the sector, but I think, you know, one good thing to come from the pandemic is that people are really thinking about different operating models, and that the conversations that I've historically had aren't falling on deaf ears as much as they used to. So yeah, a lot of sort of agile strategy about how the hell do we get through the next year? What does that mean? Is there any chance that we can raise some money anywhere? And what does our organization look like? So there's plenty for me to be getting on with there in terms of strategies, innovation, product development, and spending some time with you. That's what I'm hoping to do.
Touché. What is the change you want to see in the sector going forward?
I want us to be, in a nutshell, I just want us to be more forward thinking. There's too much talk about history and heritage, and too much kind of institutionalism within charities. And I think the divide between the people who support charities and the charities themselves just needs to shrink considerably. And I think anything that we can do to make that happen, whether it be small incremental things or whether it be large transformational things, just stop fucking looking back. A lot of the models and a lot of the things that we're doing just don't work anymore. So draw a line in the sand and look that way. That's fundamentally what I want to see change.
Okay, so tell us something unexpected about you.
I used to be a Morris dancer. You didn't know that, did you? Yeah, man. Brighton Morris, man.
Strange way I can see it.
Yeah, the beard came first, but it was a very luxurious beard at the time. And the only reason is that the Brighton Morris men, who are bloody brilliant, and if you like Morris dancing, they're like top of the tree. Their HQ was in my local pub in Brighton, and like every Thursday night I used to see this gang of people coming in like bloody pirates, you know, coming in getting free beer, jigging about. It's like a party in a team, you know. They've got their instruments and all that sort of stuff. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think I fell asleep at the bar and woke up and I was in the middle of a dance, and that's kind of how it happened. And you know, I did it for about 4 or 5 years, and it was amazing. And if I knew that I could get drunk for free just by putting on a funny outfit and dancing outside of the pub, one, I'd have done it when I was 18, and two, I'd probably be a millionaire by now. I'll send you some pictures that will terrify you.
I love it. I love it. So what's your biggest pet peeve?
Anyone who's heard me rant for more than 5 minutes will not be surprised about this, but it's gurus. I don't think there's any need for gurus. I don't think there's any place in the sector for gurus. And you being the same age as I am and on a similar trajectory charity-wise, there was definitely a time when it was all about the gurus, and you know, conferences that were like amphitheaters that built these gurus and their stages and whatever. And I think there's no point that sort of hierarchical structure doesn't work anymore, because, and especially in like the pandemic, no one's got a bloody clue what's going on at the moment. So what we need are really willing participants for change, and everyone's got a role to play in that. And it's not about, I'd be very suspicious of anyone who says they've got the answers at the moment, because I wouldn't believe them. So get rid of the gurus.
I once saw trying to remember where it was. Somewhere somebody had misread the word guru, and it said fundraising GNU instead of fundraising guru.
I can.
Brilliant.
I
Let's just call them GNUs instead.
Right. Every time I see that word now, I'm going to correct it.
Yeah. What's your most annoying habit?
Oh, where do I start? I'm a really big fidget, like ridiculously fidgety. Like I literally have to sit on my hands sometimes, and especially if I get a modicum of excitement in me, which obviously at the age of 45 doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I'm all arms and legs. And I gave up years ago watching myself back on any sort of presentation or stage that I've been on, but the few times that I have, it's not pretty. So yeah, fidgeting is literally my most annoying habit, and my wife is downstairs and she can back me up on this if you need a second opinion.
So, who is Wayne Murray's inspiration?
So I feel dreadful now because you pulled out like all the big guns, like your dad, the ex-vicar, and what a brilliant, humble and humility-filled person he was. I put down Prince because I think he's fucking awesome. So, yeah, I should have gone first.
Why Prince? Tell me why. Why is he an inspiration?
I think it was the first live performer I ever saw, and it just blew me away. You know,
Yeah.
It was 1988. I've been a fan for years anyway, but it's that, I think it's the failed artist stroke musician in me that sees this genius of musical exception, multi-instrumentalist, funk, soul, dance, all in those bloody heels as well. I just think it's brilliant. You know, him and Stevie Wonder. Tricky, but yeah, I love them both. That's all right.
The music or the heels?
The heels. I'm a size 12 foot, so it didn't work. Didn't work for me. But yeah, the music.
Okay, and yeah, crumpets or muffins?
It's got to be. I thought there'd be some friction between us. I thought I'd make quite interesting listening, but I'm with you all the way. It's crumpets for me, but you can park your peanut butter, bit of Marmite.
Oh no, not Mum!
Grated cheese under the grill. Come on, that's the way forward.
No, definitely not. Definitely.
We're never going to speak again, are we? Is that it for the podcast?
That's it for Who Are We? And can you put up with listening to us for the next few weeks or however long you choose to listen or watch or yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you for listening to our nonsense. Hopefully the guests that we have on will be much more interesting than we are, but we thought it was really important to give you a bit of a heads up as to who we are, and also a bit of a trial run for us. So we really look forward to you listening soon. Keep being awesome. Come on, double thumbs. You can do it, Claire. Cool.